Good afternoon. I'm Infinite Mystery. I'm going to be running Chippendale Rescue Rangers 2. Fat Cat has returned from prison. The gang has been relaxing as of late, and Chip has decided Dale has gotten extremely lazy as of late, so he's going to be off on the adventure of his own. You can actually pick your character this time, as opposed to the first game, and we will be starting in 3, 2, 1, go. So unlike Chippendale Rescue Rangers 1, you actually don't have to throw boxes at the majority of enemies in this game. Mostly all the enemies are very easy to dodge, and you can basically play as pacifist as possible. So a couple of things to note about this game. Just like the first game, if you walk with certain objects, they'll flash after walking in the same direction for a couple of seconds, which ensures that you're able to do more than one hit on an enemy, or completely get rid of an enemy. Also effective on bosses, but it only works with boxes and no other weapons. It's unfortunate that two pieces of health is already lost, but Monterey Jack will show up after Zipper helps us out escape the sink. The sink is the true boss of this first stage. But not satisfied with it, now this particular boss comes out who's aiding Fat Cat in his escape. So what I want to do, the movement and stuff is all RNG based, but what I hope to do at the very least is be able to walk in the same direction with a floating box to do 2 hits instead of 1. The first set of bosses take 6 hits, while the bosses after the mid-checkpoint of the game will start taking 8, while Fat Cat takes 10. After each stage, a bonus game exists. You can opt whether or not to collect extra lives. They're very easy to get. And there's virtually no danger of ever truly game overing. It's just about as easy of a game, if not easier, than Chippendale 1. But unlike Chippendale 1, which you will see starting against this boss, you can actually throw items diagonally. So against the Bat Boss in the sewers, since no boxes will come at me, I have to use these stone slabs that are falling. And also, if you hit an enemy right when you're next to them, and that you can walk through their iframe since they'll be invisible without taking damage. Of course, unfortunately, I'm doing it at the wrong time, so I do want to avoid taking another hit if possible. I believe this attempt is going much better than the previous one, but we'll see what happens when I get to the stage 3 boss. So in this stage, in a small factory-like setting, the first thing I want to wait for is, you normally would have to wait for an item to cross, but you can just use the fly to damage boost across those set of spikes. There's not much to avoid in this stage at the beginning, except for a couple of porcupines. You can use this tennis ball the tennis ball spawns for basically no reason. I believe it's supposed to enable you to get some kind of secret door, but it's pointless. So, just out of curiosity, you can just take the tennis ball all the way to the end. And now we have this boss who hops up to different platforms while the screen auto scrolls up. Now there actually is a tactic where you can If you grab a box from above and walk below, you have just enough leverage to possibly, if done correctly, you can actually hit the boss 3 times. But it's extremely hard to pull off with such a tight space, and there's also a fear of falling too. So since I'm not aware of how to do it properly, I'll go for the safest strat, which involves just waiting for a box to spawn. If the boss jumps up to the next level quickly, you can get rid of your box immediately, and when the next set of platforms appear above you, you'll be able to spawn another box, hopefully getting rid of the boss quickly enough. The next stage is in the freezer. It gives you 3 game minutes to actually escape, but it won't take you anywhere near that long to complete the stage. Stage is quite short. A couple of air fans, a couple of penguins sliding around. They're supposed to be attempting to stop you, but I think they were overpaid, possibly. And so with that short stage done, we'll go on to the next stage, the museum. So now at the museum, all of these ghosts are here for some strange reason. That box was supposed to be thrown diagonally. In the second set of the museum, there's actually a couple of paintings which go out, which actually come alive once the screen goes dark, but they're no threat. If you actually need help, you can go in this entrance right here, and Monterey Jack will spawn. And all it'll do is put you back a couple of feet while the actual boss door is up here. Against the mummy boss, which is probably the worst boss in the entire game, you either have to wait for a couple of for 2 blasts to show up, or you'll be waiting for 2 mummy-sized items to show up, which you can hit him with afterwards. The best pattern you can honestly hope for is the mummy to swoop very slowly across the screen and drop one of the mummy items immediately, but quick enough in order for you to hit him with it so that the second mummy item will also spawn. But unfortunately, I'm having basically a typical luck with the mummy as usual. If the mummy really decides to want to be mean, the mummy can basically do nothing but fire projectiles for at least a minute straight. So this is about the average amount of time that it takes to beat the mummy. It's rare if I see an excellent pattern, which would really consist of nothing but slow movement across the screen and being able to utilize both projectiles. So now we come to this small intermission where all the ghosts will disappear soon since the urn has been closed. Fat Cat is taunting them to come to the amusement park, which he controls. You now have to gather 3 keys from the next 3 stages, which you can pick in any order. So the clock tower is your typical near Castlevania-like stage with some gears, but not as threatening. But you will have to wait for a couple of horizontal moving platforms and a couple of vertical ones. There's a couple of ways you can make a very fast cycle based on the stage start, but it requires you to be very risky with a couple of jumps. You can also miss some of the some of the horizontal jumps if the screen hasn't scrolled too far below. You'll be safe. And now from this point on, the bosses take 8 hits. The ostrich, all you're basically waiting on is the wheel to show up. That's solid on the ground. Only one, unfortunately, will spawn. Whoops. That was a misdirected throw. That was supposed to be diagonally. Once again, you can just take advantage of hitting the boss extremely up close with a weapon. And you can pass through them as the iframes show up without taking damage yourself. Oh, that was unfortunate. Should only be one more hit. So just, oh, never mind, I guess it was 2 more. So since I have more than enough lives and not losing them in stage 3 via pits, I don't really, even if I did, I probably wouldn't need the extra health, the extra lives. But since they're available and I just happen to throw it at the right time, why not? Now for Western World, which is probably the worst stage in the game in terms, just because of the minecart section. If you were actually playing this with two players, this section lags up a lot more than you would be used to. And only Chip or Dale, one of the characters, could actually make the minecart move fast or slow. They'll usually be wrecking balls or rocks that will attempt to knock you off while driving. When you're actually coming towards the end of the mine track, you actually can just walk completely forward instead of having to jump. But you actually won't fall into the pit even if you just walk forward off of the minecart itself. And now for the card carrying cat. He wants you to gamble along with him, but we'll just throw cards back at him. There's probably no manip that I know of that would make this boss faster. But the best you can hope for is a boss won't just jump and walk. And the only way to be able to throw something back at him is stand just close enough. And at least one of the cards will land on the ground. This is probably the typical usual RNG that this boss could give. Maybe a bit worse than usual. But that's about par for the course. So we really don't need to worry about the bonus stages anymore. Now we're on to the second to the last stage of the game, which comprises of 2 or 3 different sections. We'll just damage boost off of that particular enemy, just because it will allow us to get rid of the very first crusher-like platform. These particular platforms, if you're standing on it, will fall underneath you after they blink orange, so you don't want to stand on them too long. As you can see, the dogs from the very first game, unfortunately, they're extremely easy to defeat. This boss with the crane, who's hoping to squash you under the mace, the only way you can damage him is to throw in some dervis that drops once the mace hits the ground, but you'll only be able to hit him diagonally once he moves forward enough. You can try to hit him without throwing it diagonally, but the majority of the crane is a massive hitbox, and that includes the tractor wheels. So as long as you aren't extremely far onto the right side, you won't have to worry about taking a hit. And usually every time you see the crane lurch extremely far back, it's going to come forward. And it looks like it attempts to ram you, but it never goes that far forward. Other than that, there's nothing much else to say about this boss. After 8 hits of having heavy objects thrown at him, he gives up. Personally, after 1, I would be completely knocked out. So now that we've obtained all 3 keys to the control room of where Fat Cat is hiding, now we enter the final stage, which is comprised of 5 small sections, just roomed with various treadmills and various enemies, some which have not been in any other stage. There's nothing much to talk about in this first area, just a couple of dancing chickens. For the second small area, there's a couple of birds who actually can elect to drop an egg on you coming from the right. So I could just stand left and wait for a bird to come from the left side and follow it all the way to the end. The intermission section of the area, Monterey, if you don't have any extra health, Monterey Jack is there to give you some. The third section, just a couple of small enemies, some lasers, treadmills. The last you'll see of the dogs. Now to the fourth area, which I like to call the ball pit of doom. You can actually hide under a box if need be to protect yourself from being hit. Whoa, I was not expecting that particular cannon to move forward as much as it did. Now for the last part of the level, if you actually need help, there's acorns after each set of boxes. And then if you want to play box ball with the enemies, you can. But they will reflect it back at you with their spoons. And you'll be dizzy, but you won't actually be hurt. And now that you've reached Fat Cat, he can't take you on himself. So instead of being a tough cat, he decides to jump in his robot mech suit, which objectively enough takes 10 hits with bombs that drop once it goes to the sky. So you're stuck waiting here for about a good 20 seconds until it finally has enough power to go up. Fat Cat in the mech suit will jump up, release a bomb, and you'll see a danger sign of where it's going to land. And if the bomb drops immediately where he's going to land, you don't have to pick it up. It's just going to explode and do damage to him. If it's anywhere else, once the counter is at 0, you'll want to aim for the body/head. The higher up, the better. You can objectively hit some of the other compartments of his. You can objectively hit some of the other compartments, the mace, the tail, and the fists with the bombs. But if you miss a shot, it will cost you 20 seconds, like I unfortunately just did. After 5 hits, the Fat Cat mech partially explodes. Also, if you're behind him, you won't have to actually worry about any of Fat Cat's major attacks hitting you. Excuse me. Which consists of the mace, a hand, and some electricity, which emits from a tail. So Fat Cat's mech suit partially explodes because of the 5-hit barrier. So we have 5 hits more. Even if the bomb drops in front of Fat Cat, just pick it up and just go behind him so you don't have to worry about the other flame attack which could show up at random. Ah. So it should be about 3 more hits. Would have been done by now if not for those 2 missed hits. As far as I know, I've never heard of perfect RNG happening with 10 drop bombs underneath them. In worst case scenario, you might see 6. Should be 1 more hit. Which is going to drop underneath him, and that should be time. Now you do have control of movement, and you also have a bonus. For some reason, the game decides to give you a bonus stage for some unknown reason, just to gain extra lives. But hey,
better than yesterday's one.
Everdrive this, probably Everdrive brick controller maybe. But other than that, thank you once again for having me, El Rock. Thank you NES Marathon for having me, and enjoy the rest. Take care.